Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, I'll begin by introducing myself. My name is Patrick Woodhead, and I am a lab lead at Protocol Labs. My lab is called Retrieval Markets, and it's just kind of a fancy name for the retrieval side of Filecoin and, to a certain extent, IPFS. We have in the lab, we're currently predominantly working on two products, networks. One is called Saturn, and the other one is called Station. So yeah, today I'm going to be speaking about Saturn. So yeah, we'll start with a challenge statement for the hackathon. So we're looking at retrieval via a distributed CDN, and the challenge statement is to build the most impactful application or prototype leveraging the Saturn network. So what is a Saturn network, I hear you ask? We'll begin with a little bit of motivation before we go into Saturn itself. Here's a little statistic. By 2025, the global CDN market is expected to be twice as large as the cloud object storage market. So we're talking about Web 2 here. The data behind this statistic is from Web 2. But it gives quite a nice heuristic for what to expect in Web 3 as well. And I suppose when you're thinking about storage and retrieval networks, like your first thought is like, oh, so it's all about storage, and then retrieval, it's just kind of obvious. You just can retrieve the file after you've stored it. But actually, retrieval turns out to be quite a lot harder than storage, because you're trying to create good retrieval experiences for people wherever they might be around the world. And so that's why the CDN market, the content delivery network market, is expected to be so much larger than the storage market, because you can just store a file and perhaps it needs some backups and replicas so that you don't lose it. But actually to retrieve that file and create great experiences for browsers and other clients around the world it requires more infrastructure, and requires, the metrics you're looking at have to be like the high performance, high reliability, high availability wherever you are in the world. So now if we go into the Web3 space, and in particular the stuff that Protocol Labs focuses on, Filecoin and IPFS, we're looking at two core problems. Firstly, with IPFS, there are IPFS gateways, which are these like centralized gateways that people use to fetch IPFS or content address content over HTTP. The problem with these is that they are the main ones are actually run by Protocol Labs, and the speed, it doesn't match what's required for lots of applications and DApps. We've tried to get IPFS into browsers, and you can add a browser extension which allows you to fetch stuff over BitSwap or not making HTTP requests to gateways. But it's a slow process to get that to take off. But use a Brave browser if you want to get that natively in your browser. Filecoin, the core problem here is that we store stuff in Filecoin, but on the retrieval side, we haven't got this like CDN or cache layer to accelerate retrievals from Filecoin storage providers. So that brings us to what is Saturn. Saturn is a decentralized CDN for accelerating retrievals from the Filecoin and IPFS networks. And I added a little star here because in the kind of product strategy thinking for Saturn, we're also looking at whether other origins could soon be supported, whereby we're not just talking about lock-in to IPFS, the IPFS network or Filecoin network. We're just talking about content addressed data in general, which could be stored on a vast majority of other networks as well. So the Saturn network so far, it launched in November 2022 at Lab Week, which is the yearly Protocol Labs gathering at the end of the year. It's now got over 5,000 points of presence around the world. It's got a network capacity of over 11 terabytes per second. That's a bandwidth measurement, and it's serving 68 million plus daily requests. So there's a lot of bandwidth getting shifted by the Saturn network already. If you want to take a look at exactly where that bandwidth is being shifted, head to explorer.saturn.tech, and we've got a nice visualization of where all the nodes are around the world, where they're geolocated. And it's really fun to see. Obviously, you expect to see a lot in the main regions like North America and Europe, but it's fun to see also where there's nodes in some underserved geographical locations. Like here, you can see there's one sort of on the tip of Brazil and kind of in the West Africa, which is cool. And then you can zoom in. If you go to this page, you can zoom in and you can start to actually see statistics about individual countries or even individual cities. And then you can even go right down to the node level and see what each node is contributing to the network. So I've zoomed in on where I live, which is London, to see that there's not just nodes in London, but in a few other cities around the place, and even some in northern France as well. So yeah, let's get into like what does Saturn look like architecturally, as I'm sure that a lot of engineers here would be interested to see what's actually happening under the hood. On the left-hand side in the yellow box, you can see we've got a client, and we're predominantly like building for browser clients initially, but we would love to see, and I'll get onto this in the idea section, love to see people building client or client code for other non-browser clients. So we make a request for a CID, a content ID, to the Saturn network. Currently, it finds a nearby Saturn node over DNS. Well, as a kind of big ticket item, we are looking to decentralize that part of the flow, but I think that's a long-term goal. The Saturn network, if these Saturn nodes are caching the content which you're looking for, they're able to return it just like any CDN would do. And if not, then we lean back on, well, the engine of the Saturn L1 node on the cache miss flow is what is called Lassie. And I encourage you to go and have a look at the Lassie code base. Lassie is able to fetch stuff over BitSwap through the IPFS network against Kubo nodes, wherever they might be running. It's also able to use IPNI, the Interplanetary Network Indexer, to find out which Filecoin storage providers or other providers might be hosting that data. And it's a simple sort of lookup of the index for where it might be, and then fetching the content. So you can see here we've got the BitSwap request from IPFS and graph sync back to Filecoin, although both of these now support HTTP as well, I believe. So what sort of things are Saturn looking to, what markets are looking to, well, yeah, let's start again. What clients are we looking to serve? We firstly got browser retrievals. We want it for clients using browsers. That's where CDNs are very impactful, because you might be able to fetch content from a local point of presence. But we're not exclusively looking at browsers. Like, we're interested in servers, like people running server code that just want to be able to get hold of IPFS or content address content. They can also we're building out an SDK called Caboose, which helps you find where you might want to fetch that content from, even when you're running it on the client on a server. And then gateway retrievals, if people want like a hosted gateway to serve Saturn content as well, content through Saturn, then we're building out some tooling around that. Okay, a quick demo, if I can. I'm gonna have to figure out how to do the sharing here. I'm gonna stop sharing. Maybe I can.
Again, sorry, I was just going to add, if there are any questions, please do feel free to add those in the chat. And I believe we should have a few minutes at the end to get those answered. So if you do have any questions throughout this presentation, drop them in the chat and we'll touch base at the end. But Patrick, hopefully you're able to reshare.
Yes, I will just share. Let me just get it running. Okay. So it's going to be fiddly to go between the terminal and the browser. So I'm just going to share on the browser here. Okay, how about now? Can you see the DevTools?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, much better.
All right. So I'll go through that again.
Perfect.
So yeah, with service workers, people familiar with that, they intercept requests from the browser main process, and then you can do some sort of magic stuff before the request is sent and when it comes back in. In general, they're kind of useful for creating progressive web apps and other such things. In our case, we need to have logic which is in between the main process and the Saturn node that we don't trust, which is going to incrementally verify the response we get. So I was just showing here that we've got this Saturn service worker loaded in, and if we then go to network requests, you can see the little cog here, which shows that this is it was being intercepted by the service worker. You can see that the service worker is making their request out to the Saturn node, and it's kind of doing it. It's kind of streaming this video back in, and that's why we have multiple requests going out. These are the requests which are actually made from the main process, and then that's the one which gets intercepted by the service worker and forwarded to Saturn. And yeah, you've seen the video already because that's what I was sharing before. So yeah, back to the demo. Can you see? Oh, sorry, back to the presentation. Can you see the presentation now?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so this is like you can go through the code yourself if you want to have a go setting this up. I'll share the repo in the links section at the end. But essentially, these are the step-by-step things you need to take. You can add this the script tag, which attaches it fetches the Saturn widget, and then you've got the service worker, which you can fetch and add to your project, and then you can use this CID here to have a look at the same bunny video that we've just viewed. Roadmap for Saturn, as I said, back in, well, that should be November actually. We launched publicly and anyone can run a Saturn L1 node. In April, we hit a milestone of this like sub-second time to first byte for IPFS content globally as part of something called the RAIA program. In May, FVM launched on mainnet back in Q1, and Saturn, I believe, was like one of the first production smart contracts to launch, and we started to manage the Saturn node operator payouts for an FVM smart contract, which is really exciting. By October, we hope to serve all the IPFS.io and DWeb link through the Saturn network. And then in November, we're launching the Saturn custom web app where we can then start onboarding beta customers to using Saturn. So yeah, back to like this hackathon, like Saturn team still working hard, linking up all these things, Saturn, IPFS, IPNI, Filecoin, and even like NFT storage. It's right at the cutting edge for what we're doing at Protocol Labs. And then, yeah, got some ideas. So yeah, the very simplest thing people can do is they can just use Saturn to fetch content, but it's not a particularly interesting use case. It's just kind of, yeah, just a simple request and then fetching content. If you're looking to build other applications, then I recommend using it just to fetch content, but yeah, it's just a nice tool to have. But I think some of the ideas here are going a little bit further and getting under the hood or trying to, hack around with new features for the Saturn network. So I'll rattle through these as quickly as I can and leave a bit of time for questions at the end. Currently, we focus mainly on browser clients with this incremental verification as I described. And really interesting for people to look into other clients like in gaming engines or video streaming apps. We've had conversations with some gaming companies about these like gaming clients and what they might look like, but we just haven't managed to prioritize that. So it'll be quite a fun project for anyone who understands how some of these like gaming engines like Unity, etc., work under the hood. I'm not a gaming expert, so not something I know too much about. The service worker that I described, there's ways we can improve like reliability and lower time to first byte, and also be interesting to look at like how you could, rather than going over DNS, like could you use some other logic to find the nearest Saturn L1. We've even spoken about like how you could use WebRTC to start to fetch content between like nodes in the same local network, which would be pretty cool. So there's some quite fun ideas on how you can do last mile sharing of content to get that time to first byte down. Oops, I've just gone one too far. Build a video streaming platform, so really focus on like the video use case and how to make that really performant. And then in the same breath, like could a live peer node and a Saturn node, like could there be some sort of mash together of those? That's also sort of linked, I suppose, like building a platform there, and we'll go straight to 9, building like an HTML5 game or migrating one to be served by Saturn, just doing like some simple stuff in the browser, and seeing if you can kind of get a gaming use case up and running on Saturn. Station, the other project in my team, I won't go into detail on that now, but that could be quite a fun thing to look into. Then adding access control or some other like security features that you see in CDNs, trying to add those to a Saturn L1 node. And then another one which is more focused rather on like the use cases and customers and what projects could use Saturn, focusing on like the node operators who are running Saturn nodes, creating more tooling to help them, for example, position themselves in the most advantageous geolocation. If you plonk yourself in a data center where there's loads of other Saturn nodes, you're unlikely to win a large slice of the pie. But if you find an underserved geography, then the algorithm works such that you're then more likely to win more of the rewards. So some sort of tooling to help people choose where they should locate themselves, or any other tooling which can help support node operators to run a good service in the Saturn network. Got some links here. Saturn.tech is kind of the home place to head to. Docs.saturn.tech, explorer.saturn.tech we've seen already. That's the GitHub link, github.com/Filecoin Find us on Filecoin Slack at #FilecoinSaturn. And then just go to YouTube and search for Filecoin Saturn, and you'll see some talks. We haven't got actually too many ones from the last few months, but there'll be enough to give a flavor of what's going on and some of the team members. And then other links, stuff we've spoken about, like Lassie, IPNI, CID.contacts, which is like an instance of IPNI on Filecoin Slack, etc., etc. Cool. I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Well, yeah, thank you very much for an incredible talk. We do have some questions in the chat if you'd be happy to answer those before we wrap up. So yeah, I'm happy to shout them out to you if that's easiest. But we've had one from Nashaya who says they saw a talk on Saturn Pay on YouTube, and they wondered if you could maybe talk about that a little bit more and whether it's a product that could be incorporated into a project.
Saturn Pay. I'm not sure I know what Saturn Pay is. Is that like another product?
Sure, maybe you can.
Thing is Saturn Pay.
Okay, well, maybe Nashaya, you can clarify on that one, but we can move on to some others. We have Russell who's asked if you have any performance metrics from Saturn which you'd like to share.
If you go to this, I think we have like a time to first byte measure on the website, but maybe it's not there at the moment. Oops, that's not the right website. Yeah, so on the website, we have average time to first byte for IPFS content as it currently stands, and that's at 320 milliseconds. So we use like, well, we put average there. Yeah, so 320 milliseconds average time to first byte for requests across the network.
Amazing.
And that's that. Like time to first byte is obviously then it's like what's the time to last byte? We don't want the bandwidth to be too low, but the Saturn L1 nodes have really high bandwidth like requirements. So time to first byte when we're in a distributed network is a really important thing. As a bandwidth is sort of guaranteed by what we ask the node operators to provide.
Great, thank you. And then we have another one who's asked about whether there are any fees associated with using the service.
For hackers to just like get the URL and just have a go. Oh,
I think you cut out just a little bit there. It's clearer now, so if you'd like to try again. Yeah.
Any fees associated with the service? It's early days, and so people can use the Saturn URL, and they won't be charged for it at the moment. And particularly if they're just kind of creating little proof of concepts or hacking around with it, it'd be, I imagine, just a small number of requests, which will probably fit into the kind of free tier of Saturn in any case once we launch the pricing page. But there will be fees associated with customers using it in the long term, following the similar sort of pricing models as traditional CDNs, where customers pay to accelerate the content that they're storing and want to be retrieved through the system.
Great, thank you. A couple more if we have time. Someone asking about joining the beta and how they would go about doing that. So that was
reach out, maybe just send me a message on the Discord channel or on Filecoin Slack, and we can start a conversation.
Amazing. And then just scrolling through, I think we might have one more. Yes, so Saturn is decentralized network, peer-to-peer, right? Any node can join. What is the inactivation mechanism?
So long term it's a decentralized network. It's currently a distributed network, so we can't trust it as a network. There are some there is an amount of orchestration that we're having to do at the moment, which we would like to move to a smart contract in time, but just to get the network bootstraps, there is a few things we have to orchestrate, or the Saturn team has to orchestrate. So I would say I would call it a distributed network, or like a low trust network, but not quite a zero trust network yet. Any node can join. Anyone who satisfies the hardware requirements can join. The inactivation mechanism, if I understand that correctly, is like, what does that mean? Like, well, I assume it means like, how do we know if nodes aren't performing or aren't like contributing to the network? There's currently like an uptime checker, which we would like to move to smart contracts soon, which just checks uptime of nodes, so we can get an idea of how they're like which nodes are actually working in the network.
Amazing. And then I don't want to leave anybody out, so there has just been one follow-up on how nodes are incentivized to join.
They get paid currently in Filecoin. There's long-term plans maybe to have a Saturn token. It's like maybe even an ERC20 on Filecoin FEM. But currently, yeah, you get paid in Filecoin or in Phil for serving retrievals.
Amazing. Well, I think that is everything. So yeah, I'd like to just thank you for the final time on behalf of everybody here. Lots of questions which you've been helpful to answer as well. So thank you for your time this afternoon. And as always, hopefully we can share all of the links after the session and attach those to the recording for anybody who missed those, or anybody who wants to recap the session. So yeah, thank you very much to Patrick. And yeah, we'll see you soon.
Thanks all. Catch you later.
Cheers. Bye-bye.